Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to LoreLink. We're here today with special guest Emily Fraser. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about your company, Weapons Grade Funk, and your various RPGs, which are super cool. So let's get into it. What would you like to tell us about how you got started as a creator in this space?
Oh, God, it's yeah, kind of big story. So Weapons Grade Funk came to be about 11 years ago officially, because that's when the first product launched. The project began probably a year or two before that. The first project that came out, it was HC DRACONES 1.0. That was a tabletop RPG that's in second edition. Before that, I was doing artwork in various spaces. I was on Tabletop Role for Affinity a lot. I was just kind of around in various roles, doing some narratives, doing some storytelling, obviously playing a lot of tabletop RPGs. I felt some absences in the gameplay worked. I'm getting that my mic's is that coming through to everybody else?
My apologies for that. Let's try to kick this off again. You were telling us a little bit about the story of how you got started with Weapons of Grade Funk and kind of the idea of getting into creating your own games.
Yeah, so I had been writing comics and doing just general narrative experiments for a little bit. I'd also been in kind of the art world. Ultimately, I didn't really feel like I was getting what I wanted to create out of both of those. With the amount of time that I had to put in, I was wrapping school up. I had a child on the way. I had various familial obligations, and I was kind of plateauing on the amount of time that could go into to those individual skills.
Right.
And I wanted to try something new that was going to involve more storytelling. And I also wanted to kind of create an environment in a game that felt a little more personal, explored a few topics that I didn't necessarily see ready solutions to, and incorporated some themes that were just speaking to me a bit more at the time. I was also trying to process a lot, which I think a lot of creators just sort of are. So all of that accumulated into the first attempt, which was HC DRACONES 1.0, a game that was fraught with problems and all sorts of issues going into it because it was a first attempt, and they are. I'm happy to go into those. From a development standpoint, it's kind of useful information, I think, for people to hear. But suffice it to say, when the eventual second edition of that game came along, it was because I wanted to create a second, better edition because I learned from the first one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, anytime you're starting something new for the first time, there's always learning experiences to be had.
Yeah, for sure. And there were a lot of firsts in HSD1. It was the first large-scale publication. It was the first product that I had made in physical media that was of that size.
Yeah.
First Kickstarter. First, full system built from scratch. HSD1 had its own system. The world had not been introduced anywhere else. I'd had various characters and loose ideas and stuff like that, but the full world accumulated had only been in one place. First attempt at narrating said world, which was kind of abysmal, honestly, and just a lot of just kind of first attempts that went into that. But the result was that a product did get made, which was really cool.
Which is huge.
And I got to get some pretty elaborate testing of said product after the product was released, because that's how that works when you're doing your first one.
Yes.
When you go out into any particular market, but I think especially the RPG market, with an idea and no previous history, all you're doing is handing 300 pages worth of Word document to people and being like, "Hey, do you mind, quitting the game you're currently playing in that 1 hour a week that you've got to do this, reading 300 pages and then running it as written and telling me what you think?" That went about as well as it sounds. So HSD1 had very little playtesting. And by very little, I mean damn near none. And it was not for lack of trying. It's because that's a really big ask. You know,
Right.
this
It is.
time is that people have a hard time swapping game systems to established systems. It's even harder for them to swap to unestablished systems. They don't know if this is going to be worth their time. They don't know if it's actually going to be workable or not. They don't know if it's just, you know, a vanity project or if it's actually going to show up somewhere or anything else. I don't blame people at all for not necessarily wanting to give up their treasured game time for somebody's hope when they have no idea if it's actually going to deliver. But the reality of the end of that is, unless you have the money to pay people and bring them in as an actual service, you're not really going to get much testing on your first run through. Not if you're not an
Yeah.
established name.
That's super hard.
A bit, yeah, it's a little difficult. So there were certainly system issues that came out of the first edition. But the nice part was, after it did deliver, after it did get out there and people started playing it, I got feedback.
Hmm.
And I was able to incorporate a bunch of that feedback and a very dedicated testing group that did an amazing job because they now liked the game. They liked the world and they wanted to keep playing it, and they helped me out a whole lot. And I was able to create two, which I like a lot better, and has run quite well for about 7 years now. No, God, more than that.
Nice.
No, I think it's about 7. About.
Amazing.
Um, so yeah, that was kind of the journey there. And that's
I
just from the system standpoint. From the narrative standpoint, there were also experiments done that didn't necessarily land very well that we learned from.
Sure.
Um, I was
That's
trying to uh, I was trying to communicate some fairly complicated ideas in a way that I thought was going to be like uh, uh, subtle, I guess is sort of the word, but that
mhm.
that implies a little bit more skill than I actually had at the time. uh, uh, a way that was going to draw people in and try to get them to investigate the environment more, to try to figure out if the narrative that was being spun to them was false,
Right.
if they could recognize various aspects of it that doesn't actually match up to the stuff. And that makes a lot of assumptions about the amount of time that people are willing to spend as something is spouting basically propaganda at them before they be like, I
Right.
see what you're doing here. And that honestly was a poor idea. That was just a shit plan. Um, the other half of that one, curiously enough, which this one is not one that I talk about very often, but I think this was a good opportunity to bring it up because it's just sort of how people think and how people experience. One of the HSD's environment is this hyper-capitalist environment where a lot of people have never experienced anything but that because they're extremely confined.
Mhm.
So they've just kind of accepted that that's just how it works because
Yep.
they seem to be getting food and stuff, which is supposed to be a commentary partially on just the effectiveness of propaganda,
Yeah.
but also based on my experience growing up with actually diabetes, type 1, I was kind of perpetually fed this sort of like ongoing narrative of this country that we live in being this great and glorious thing, and all the opportunities that sort of like go with it, while at the same time I'm sitting here with this disease that's gradually killing me and being told that the only way I will be able to survive is if I have a full-time job and they choose to give me insurance. And that
Right.
is the great solution. And thank goodness we have that instead of, all these other things. And in the meantime, this is governing all sorts of different choices. It means it locks you in certain life paths. It locks you in relationships. There's all kinds of things that are just hinging on medical insurance
Yep.
in order to make sure that you can exist, while the whole time everybody's all smiles and grins. And that kind of like life experience, I wanted to factor that into HSD's narrative
Yeah.
of like, you're being told how great everything is from somebody who is refusing to acknowledge how terrible everything is.
Yep.
Um, and from a novel standpoint, I think that's kind of a fun idea. But from where this kind of landed, I have since discovered that it just was a poor approach. So it's what I kind of bring up on the regular because I think it's worth noting. I think being
Yeah.
upfront and very transparent is a very useful tool. And in Gallery, that's a whole different approach. There's a bold,
Right.
two-page spread right at the front saying, this is what this book is about.
Oh, and I saw that when I was reading through the starting point of Gallery. I noticed that you were very, very clear. This is how I am conveying the information to you, but you did it in a way that was not like, I'm not smacking you in the face with it, but I am making it clear that so that there is no misinterpretation of how this is going, because it's a very narrative driven introduction. It's from the perspective of somebody living in that world, from their perspective, which, to be blunt,
Mhm.
I think is fantastic. One of the things that I have appreciated from reading through both HC DRACONES and Gallerie and the core books is that you don't jump straight to the mechanics and like the third page. You
Yeah.
start with a narrative, a story, something in the context of the world to kind of guide you into what is this thing about without third person explaining it. And it is a refreshing approach. It is an engaging approach. And it honestly, it made me fall in love with both of them almost immediately because rather than how do I play this game, it is what is the world that I'm about to explore? And at least for me, that's a super compelling way to approach it. And I don't see that very often in all the books that I read. I immediately wanted to sit down and read the core books cover to cover, and that's not
Oh, yeah.
usually right. That's not usually
I mean,
what
it's
I'm.
glad to hear it. Yeah.
That's not where I am when I'm sitting down to a book. Usually, I'm trying to okay, how do I get this character created, or how do I jump into the action, or that's usually my approach. But I immediately I want to read this.
Yay. And I mean, that is the hope. The narratives are why I play the games.
Right.
I do appreciate RPGs from a mechanical standpoint. There's a reason
Sure.
HSD2 is as crunchy a game as it is. I come from a wargaming background. Like there's, the Chaos Star is there for a reason.
Yeah.
I played all kinds of tabletop combat games for a long time. I like mechanisms. But ultimately, I am not playing tabletop RPGs for their mechanisms. I think they're an important part of the game. I think they drive the narrative. This is why I'm not a super big fan of like Powered by the Apocalypse is a wonderful system, but I just don't love that different things slot into it and it just becomes a universal thing. D&D is kind of the same way. Just toss it to the D&D thing. I could do that, but I kind of feel like dice should reflect the way the game feels at the same time. I like having systems built for the game. But ultimately, I'm thinking the narrative is the thing that is the primary draw and where I want to be. And if this dice are getting ahead of it or in front of it, then it's not really where I like to be in these particular games. Gallerie specifically is extremely rules light, even by HSD standards. It's very stripped down and moves very quickly.
And what's interesting is I got into role playing from a very crunchy standpoint, and now I find this the story that is the compelling part to me. And I think we change in our preferences over time, and there's lots of different players, and there's a lot of gamers that are in a variety of games at any given moment in time, and some of them may be crunchier, and some of them are more story focused, and there's room for all of that. But it's fun to see that sort of exploration taking place.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Because,
We got a subscription.
oh, cool. Hey, all right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I also like. I don't think that mechanisms should be completely stripped away from the games. I think they're part of it. I think they do help drive it. I just like it more when they are kind of subsequent to the story and they behave the way the story wants to behave.
Right.
In Gallerie, we have a mechanism called twisting, where the muses, the characters that you're playing, can literally use their medium, their kind of magic of the system, to twist fate. And they do that by literally tossing an extra dice at it. It's just a D4, and it alters any roll you want it to, but it alters any roll you want it to. It can alter the way you talk. It can alter the way that you're attacking, defending, negotiating, using a skill. And the rule with twisting is when you do it, you must describe what your medium is doing. It is a thing happening in real time. So if you're communicating with somebody and choose to twist, they now see that you are altering things in the space. And that's a way that the mechanism in the game is reflected in its role play. I like stuff like that. One of my favorite examples of this is Dread, where, and I haven't even got a chance to play Dread. I just read about Dread and I was in love with it right away. Dread was such a cool idea. But this idea of a horror game where the check mechanic is based off Jenga And
Yes,
it just becomes more and more intense the higher up you go. Like, what a wonderful idea for a mechanism.
it is. Yeah.
I haven't even had a chance to play it. I love it. Um, so things like that I find really really enjoyable, and I like it when a system tries to serve its narrative well. HSD is a game where the individual makeup of your characters matters a whole lot. The way
Yeah.
they're designed, you can customize everything from the way their bodies are configured to the skills that they have, and it's not a class-based system. Everybody's going in with the same menu, and you kind of build yourself through
Yeah.
different skill selections, which can make it pretty list heavy, for sure. So there's a lot of reading in that game as opposed to Gallery. Um, but it does mean that mechanically, you have the ability to create a very unique creature, and
Yeah.
all of the decisions you made are reflected in the way you behave. Which I also find kind of fun. It's just sort of like, where do you want to focus? Do you want something that's granular about this stuff, or do you want it where that's kind of backseated and you get to talk a little more freely?
Right. And the character creation is really bioengineering. Yeah, that's a premise of a certain percentage of it. And so there's
Mhm.
so much from that anything is possible kind of standpoint, but it's both engineered and natural, and you may or may not be the only one of your kind as a vector, or you may be um, one of more common type of characteristics that you see around you. It's a super interesting concept that I'd never heard of. And then you have the cogs, which are the sentient machines that also have their own completely customizable uh, like form.
Yeah,
Um,
the chassis solutions. I didn't want cogs to feel like an afterthought. I wanted,
right.
players who are playing cogs to have the same level of customization available to them.
Very, very cool level of customization. What inspired you to build? Because I assume you made the system that
Mhm.
HSD is related is built around, right? So you built the system as part of the storytelling.
Yeah. There were a couple things. So
Okay.
HSD1 had some experiments that I ultimately, some of them stuck around and some of them
Okay.
got stripped out because they were reviewed after the fact and people didn't like them that much. One of the things that I kind of wanted to try out just for the sake of seeing if it worked was this concept of economy in the
Hmm.
first edition of the game, where you can build a character who can kind of buy their way out of stuff or barter using that as an actual skill.
Okay.
And if you wanted to go whole hog into that, you can do things like bankroll your team or
Yeah.
anything else like that. And it was this concept that ultimately I ended up pulling from the second game. But like, it was a fun experiment. It was a neat thing to do. One thing with the original system from HSD1 was it had this grid of stats and proficiencies that could be intermingled in different ways, and there was no hard rule of what it was that you had to do for a combination. All you had to do was narrate what you wanted to do, and then you would pick a combination that reflected it. Um, and it resulted in a grid that was bigger than it needed to be. So the
Hmm.
grid got reduced down to body, mind, and social
Sure.
or community in the second game, but the concept remained. How you were combining things, if you were using body and a skill to do something, or if you were using mind and a skill
Hmm.
to do something. And there were a few things where it only kind of makes sense to go in one direction of those combinations, but there were many where any kind of combination that you wanted to would actually work out, and your job as the player was to narrate what you did. You just
Yeah.
say what you're going to do and then pick the appropriate combination to reflect that. And I always kind of thought that was fun. My goal as a storyteller, as a guide, as this game likes to call it, is not to tell people they can't do a thing. It's to ask
Yeah.
them how they pulled it off.
Oh, totally.
And ultimately, my systems are trying to do that. There's not too much in there of like, no, you can't, you don't have this ability or something. Especially Gallery is even fuzzier on that one because of things like twisting and stuff. It's just, tell me how you did this, make this narrative compelling, and I'm sure we'll find a combination that makes it work.
And I love that so much because anytime you are giving the players the opportunity to be creative, I think fun things happen at the table.
Mhm.
Uh, it creates these fun moments, and honestly, even in crunchier systems, sometimes just leaning into the way you describe things. Like I had a fun fun moment a few months ago in a Pathfinder game where the game master specifically described how a monster gobbled up another character. And he specifically
Mhm.
described that they were chewing and the mouth is opening and closing. And I'm like, the mouth is opening and closing? That means I can see down their gullet. He's like, yeah. I'm like, perfect. That means I can aim line of sight. That allows me to
Yeah,
enlarge person.
neat.
Crap. Right? But
Yeah, I mean, I like that stuff.
it's fun.
I have long been kind of the mind that you kind of, unless the game is specifically designed for it, you're sort of hamstringing yourself if you create an adversarial relationship between players and GMs. Ultimately, you all should be empowering each other.
Yep.
And it does have to go both ways. Like I do kind of want players to empower the GM by giving them hooks, by giving them
Yep.
opportunities to find stumbles, by not being perfect all the time, or not being upset when you have like been called out on an opportunity. You have a character flaw that the GM capitalizes on. That's great.
Right.
That's a story. Roll with it.
Yep.
Um, but I did start the role playing game um, hobby in an era where adversarial relationships between GMs and players were the standard, at least in the groups that I was in. And while the games were still fun, I have a couple of horror stories, as we all do, but they're not too bad. I always kind of thought, wouldn't it be more fun if we could kind of be on the same team for more of this? Um,
Sure.
so that's been sort of the hope, and it doesn't necessarily change the mechanisms too much. Like in both HSD and Gallery, you're still your guide is still putting monsters on the table that have effectively hit points. They work a little differently, but it's the same concept. But in both games, players are given ways to get out of jail free if they need to. They're given opportunities to do things that are really over the top.
Yep.
In HSD, we have a mechanism that allows you kind of once per game to literally sacrifice yourself in a way that won't get you killed, so that you can have this really cinematic moment of, I'm gonna blow up this building while I'm in it and somehow survive this fall. Um, and you can also employ it if you get in too deep into a narrative and you're going to die and you're like, I'm not ready to retire this character yet. Find a way to survive. And you can't pull on it over and over and over again, but it's there. It's a lifeline to allow you to do a crazy thing without having to get up a character for it.
Yeah.
In Gallery, there are various forms of resurrection that all involve stories. So there are other character classes that can resurrect if they do certain things, or there's the patrons that you can get resurrections through if you do certain things and also owe them favors. I'm all about kind of letting whatever you want to happen as long as it generates a story.
Right.
I don't really want that power to be keyed to a die roll. I kind of want that power to be keyed to the next 3 weeks of play.
Yep. Yeah. I I find it's useful when there's just enough to provide the inspiration on what's possible, what to do, but not so much that it's limiting to the players. And
Mhm.
honestly, one of the things that helps too, if you don't mind, I would love to share my screen and show off just a little bit of the artwork from HSD because I
Yeah,
find
please.
that that's super compelling. Let me, so like here is just page 7, and here's one of the avatars, and it's just kind of setting the stage for what your characters may look like. Um, and as we kind of scroll through, you have here the vectors, which are genetically engineered life forms. Um, some of the opportunities there, you have the cogs, which are sentient machines in their different forms, and it really sets the, right, here's a variety of characters together at a, looks like a dance ball, and it
Mhm.
really sets, there's the blips.
That particular event is actually canon to the lore in there. It's been a while
Nice.
since I've read this story, so I can't remember what it's called. But this is a an event put on by Spyglass, which is kind of like the spy-esque
Hmm.
company, specifically bringing in all the kind of best of the worst.
Right.
It's the equivalent of like the Black Hat hacking convention. You just kind of bring in
Nice.
everybody and have everybody kind of pick it over everybody's shoulder.
So when I was reading through the lore, it feels a bit like it's a post-apocalyptic type of setting.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I'm not totally sure that it's dystopian. It's
I mean, it is. It's
right,
just dystopian in a way that's gilded.
right,
Yeah. And that
which is
is sort
interesting.
of the thing with it. And this is actually the thing that is a tricky narrative to pull. And I'm not fully certain that we are in a place right now, society-wise, where it is like the best approach. This was a story that was written like any story. It has its kind of time and place.
Sure.
I really like this environment. I think it's interesting, but I also think that there's a bit more need for direct action right now in our current world, and this one
Right, of
isn't
course.
necessarily pushing that the same way. Um, this game is not what I would define as cyberpunk, mostly because I feel like punk is specifically anti-establishment. And HSD kind of plays this kind of narrative of the establishments are just too damn big to really stop.
Yeah.
And the reason for that narrative being in there is because I'd really just kind of seen a whole lot of stories that have revolved around the idea of we're going to solve all the problems in the world by waving our big glowing purple swords and just offing the right people, blowing up the right building. And as somebody who is personally dependent on infrastructure to survive, I don't think that's going to work. So
Yes, yeah, exactly.
there's there's a lot more kind of boots on the ground action that I wanted to push in HSD,
Sure.
where people's player characters would actually go out and individually help people to get them out from under the crushing oppression of all these megacorps. But if you write it down like that, it becomes this kind of like imperative that people can't sandbox in anymore.
Right.
So
Right,
it
right, right,
goes
right.
unwritten. And as we kind of mentioned before, if you leave things unwritten, especially right now, they are assumed to be ignored.
Correct.
So it is in a floaty place where the whole kind of hope for this game was that people would take the corporations that they're making and the grassroots organizations that they're making and help the communities around them in their narrative. But it wasn't really put out there because then it becomes the sandbox changes shape if you do that. So whether this was an effective approach or not really comes down to the individuals,
Yeah, for sure.
and I can't necessarily speak to it being the best approach to
I,
it. I think it was a thing that I was trying to put out there because as much as I do love fantasy fulfillment and kind of empowerment from a fantasy fulfillment area, ultimately waiting until you have a fully cyberized body that can jump 50 feet in the air and bounce off the walls and a
yeah,
blazing laser sword is going to be a little too late to help the
yeah,
people who are suffering right now.
yeah.
But if you can help with boots on the ground, you can help. And that is a thing that you can do in this game. That's the thing you can do in reality. And
Right.
that's sort of the hope to come out of there. But in terms of dystopian, it is a fully corp controlled universe. You
Right.
have no privacy, you have no personal ownership, you have
Right.
nothing that comes through it, and the people who do are demonized as folks in the grottos and stuff like that.
There's some
Experimentation a thing. Obviously, humanity's dead.
really strict parallels that I'm observing. It's like us, but with a little bit more technology.
A bit, yeah. It is supposed to be pointing toward a an inevitable direction
Yeah,
if things are
exactly.
diverted.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I picked that up.
a little bit.
That was clear.
Um, but also, you want to make a game that's fun.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's and that's kind of why
And,
those other points weren't put directly into the narrative, is because at the end of the day, if people want to play Star Fox in this game, they should do it. Once the
like
book hits your shelf, run the game you want to play.
right. I Now I feel like I need to interrupt us briefly because I love this conversation, but we are being yelled at to show page 320.
320.
Vehicular assistance.
Oh,
The modern era has various bits of machinery and transit devices all over the place. Some are even useful. Small non-combat vehicles that your character is exploiting for some extra movement. Nice.
this image was directly taken from a campaign that was run in the system. So those characters are people that played.
Oh,
The
that's
one in front
amazing.
is actually mine. Yeah.
Nice.
I wouldn't be surprised if several people in your chat right now were actually the characters that are on this screen.
Oh, nice. They're amazing. Sweet. Cool, cool, cool. Love it.
The artwork that was able to be sourced for this game was just so lucky. I had so
Oh, that's
much help from
amazing.
so many different people to go with it. A lot of it is commissioned, but a whole bunch of it is literally just fandom artwork that the artist gave. Or I
Nice.
paid a licensing fee for.
That's
One
amazing.
versus the other. Some just handed them over. Some, we talked about a licensing fee, and I gave them cost to include and stuff like that. But because it is ultimately sandboxy sci-fi,
Mhm.
there's a lot out there to work with.
Right.
So it ended up having just a whole host of beautiful artwork, much more than could be afforded if each one was commissioned.
No, for sure. Like,
This is an issue that that Gallery is kind of running into. Is that is not like a Tolkien fantasy game. It's a very specific environment, and
right.
pretty much all of the pictures have to be commissioned. So it's a much more expensive product.
I get you. Like this, because the artwork in HSD is fantastic, and there's so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a high-end production, like with budget. It comes across that way. It really does. It looks fantastic. Um,
Thank you.
so anyway, we were talking a little bit about the kind of the setting, and one of the things that's interesting is depending upon your group and who you are and what you're looking for different things out of a setting like this, because on the one hand, this provides the framework for people to safely explore how they would like to interact and engage in a way that may not be safe for them to do in the real world. Um,
For sure.
and I find that like some people want to game in a high fantasy or far future sci-fi specifically because it doesn't have elements of the real world in it. But I
Mm-hmm.
find that especially with post-apocalyptic or dystopian types of games, a lot of times we're trying to single out one element of our real world to deal with and kind of
Mm-hmm.
to explore. And I'm sure that's different for different players, but it can be useful to provide a framework for that.
Yeah, depending on HSD is a deliberate sandbox, so there's supposed to
Right,
be elements for sort of any one of those things you'd like to go into.
right.
Gallery is a little less so. Gallery kind of has a specific direction that it's trying to go and a crowd that it's trying to attract. Both of these are things that I find valuable in the world, but they're going to get different people, right?
Sure.
You're just what it is you're going to want to play is going to be different depending on what you're going for. I've gotten a lot of really cool narratives that came out of HSD
Hmm.
on things like fighting larger corporations or grassroots movements
Yeah.
or even the fantasy of having a lucrative career. But uh,
Yeah.
uh, anything that kind of goes with it, but also just kind of exploring body types or
Yeah.
getting to see yourselves. This obviously came from a pretty specific fandom direction that I spent a lot of time in. So it was
Yeah.
nice to have a game that existed where you could kind of take anything that you had seen and be like, hey, you want to play that character? Here it is. The rules exist. And they work, and they're not, drowning in the hero system at 500 pages long or something like that.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, so it just made it a bit more approachable for doing that sort of thing. It also gave it a framework within the history where they made sense, at least in
Yeah.
a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are liberties taken. It's a astral horror kind of landscape. There's a little bit of magic involved.
Mhm.
Um, but you had the opportunity to really kind of play whatever you could fantasize within this scope and have those decisions matter as opposed to a skin.
Right.
So even if you're playing, one of these cogs that has a body that is fully animated water, that is reflected in the way that you can behave and the things that you can do with it. And it ends up with a landscape with a very diverse cast, which I always like to see. Like no party is really having the same group of people. You can have all kinds of different configurations and different abilities that go with it. Problems are solved a lot by how you're shaped. The diversity is genuinely beneficial, and
Right.
because it's not a class-based game, nobody's locked down to you're the healer, you're
Right.
you're
Right. Right.
the
Right.
fighter, and you pick the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Which I always appreciate that. And I love character creation
Mm.
in you know really heavy systems, but on the flip side, it can be hard to build a cohesive, fun storytelling group when you build your characters in advance. And if you right, if you can be in a situation where you kind of figure out together,
We
ah,
lost 20.
we lost 20. 1 second. That screws with my uh, Google Meet window. 1 second. Sorry, everyone.
Mhm.
I need to
I can actually turn
readjust
on my AC really
quickly.
quick.
Yeah.
It's a little warm in here.
We're going to fix our display. Cool.
While I have the opportunity,
Yeah.
I'll just grab these out of the bookshelf really quick. These are
Course.
fun relics of the past. This was first edition, and it was a paperback.
Nice.
Yeah. And ultimately, the publishers of this one really kind of hosed me.
Oh no.
A huge chunk of these books fell apart within months, and
Oh no, that's unfortunate.
yeah, just binding came loose on them. So once we went to drive through, the hardcover version of this came out, and obviously now first edition's defunct anyway, so not really a thing that's happening. But I think probably every person who got involved in the original Kickstarter who got one of these likely has it torn out of the cover by now,
Yep.
which is really unfortunate. I was in contact with them for quite a bit, and ultimately they just kind of stopped responding, and no stuff came forward out of that. So the pratfalls of trying to, figure out publication when you're new
Well,
and seeing who can do stuff. It's especially difficult now.
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So out of
And that
curiosity,
game, go
if
on.
you don't mind me
Mhm.
asking, like, did you have a background in publication or in writing or something before you jumped into this huge project?
Sort of. I mean, I had stuff that I'd done online. I also have a
Okay.
master's in new media.
Oh, beautiful.
I am aware of how to use the software,
That
but
makes
I
sense.
hadn't done a project like this before. This
Yeah, that
was
makes sense.
the first big project like this.
That makes sense.
And there's been a lot of learning that's come since. Certainly, I think every book that comes out of it just looks a little bit better. The one mastered, I think, looks better than the core rulebook does. I really like the core rulebook. Sound and Silence, I think, is a really pretty book.
Yeah.
Not sure if you saw that one. That's the lore book that came out
Yeah.
of HSD.
Yeah.
But I have been working in this color palette for so long
Yeah.
that
Nice.
gallery is very refreshing just to be working in. It's nice to be someplace warmer than all these kind of blues and grays.
Right?
Mm.
Yeah, no, the gallery artwork is also really fantastic. Let's see here, I can. So here is an outline of the Muses page, just gorgeous artwork. And then this is the character creation spread, walking through story selections and everything.
Yeah, which what page you on?
This is the character creation.
The one that's got the picture on the top right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can't see what you're sharing, so I don't know if you have it in two-page view or not. The
Yes,
game
this is
is
the two
intended
page,
to
the
be
full
viewed on
spread view.
two-page.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's really
spreads. Yeah,
cool.
that's Gaki's work up there.
Nice.
Just incredible person with incredible artwork. I have been very lucky to source them and several others to get art into this book. Um, really fun to see. It's also a book that has a specific style. It's very watercolory. It's intended to be
Yeah,
dreamlike. So the artwork will be reflective of that in most cases. Several
right.
tattoo artists, some of which are local, have done
Nice.
some work for this. I only have one from Becky in here right now, but she's also done the work for the patrons. So when they're finished, they'll get implemented. The kind of godlike beings of this setting. But the creature that is on page, if I go down, there we go. Page 149 is from Becky, who's a local tattooist in San Diego.
All right, let's see if I can pull that up. That was in the Muse or the?
That's in the Muse book on 149, yeah.
Got it. I'll pull that up and share it. So the premise of Gallery, for those who are watching and don't know, is that effectively you're an artist, right? Who has sort of this magical medium and the ability to control the canvas. And the canvas
Sort of.
is kind of the world.
Yeah, so the breakdown of it is that there is a kind of universal force called medium. The canvas is our world. That's the world that we're in right now.
Yep.
Is the canvas. Medium is the thing that persists everywhere, but in the canvas, the creatures that built this place, the patrons, don't really allow it to be used in a way that is like quote unquote magical.
Got it.
Because they're trying to control the experiment. This is their kind of together collaborative project. And because of that, it doesn't really have an outlet. So it kind of manifests in things like dreams and unfulfilled visions, and every book that isn't written, and every kind of prospect that was ever made, or that the masterpiece that wasn't accepted. All these grand ideas that we never see out there because capitalism gets in the way, or marketability gets in the way, or everything else gets in the way, kind of becomes aggregate medium that eventually coagulates into people called muses. And those people are kind of built and tailored by the world around them, but are not actually human and are not actually what they're told to be. And eventually we'll discover that and fall into Gallery, which is the world that the patrons and all these other creatures are living in, that does allow medium to be used this way, as a kind of magical force. And they're kind of seeing beyond the canvas into the area behind it. And you can hop back and forth. You can come from any area you want to. Your adventure can be in the gallery, which is the fantasy realm, or it can be in various years in the canvas. You can, time travel elements. There's alternate history elements.
Yeah.
All kinds of fun stuff. The game that I'm running right now has people from, 4 different eras, and they have no shortage of fun, just kind of laughing about all the references they're not getting from each other.
Nice. So what was the page? I finally have it pulled up. What page did you want me to show?
149. Just had the piece from that particular artist.
Beautiful. My computer's struggling to render the PDF, but here we go. It is coming. There we go. 149. Oh, there it is. 149. Oh yeah. Nightmares. Sweet. Data point of 1, but yeah, that's gonna be in my nightmares now. That's fantastic though. It's great. And the muses was the page I'd shown earlier. Really cool.
Yeah, if you scroll down one page from there, there's a nice spread that shows 2 different takes on stuff.
Nice. And there's the patrons, Vale's hands, the patrons. Nice. Cool. This has come a long way. So what is the current plan for Gallery? I know that this is still in development. Are you doing playtesting? And
it is currently in playtesting. There are several groups that are playing it right now.
nice.
I'm running one. I've got a couple of friends that are running other ones.
Nice. That's amazing.
It's very. I've been really excited to get just a lot of people that are eager to get involved in the testing of this game, which is partially because HSC2 has been around for a while, so folks know that this will actually get to market at some point.
Right.
But also, I think this game just speaks to people a bit more directly.
Yeah.
It's like, as I've mentioned, it's less sandboxy. It has kind of a specific theme.
Right.
And the folks for whom it's written, primarily queer, primarily trans, just groups, are seeing a lot of stuff in it and themes that is intended to catch their eye. And give them a place to play. And that has meant that more people are kind of eager to get involved in the testing aspect, which is cool because we get more data points, we get better chances to see how things go. The game is quite far along, as you can see. It's missing a lot of artwork that I would like to get into it. I just can't afford right now until we get funding done. So that's what's kind of missing right now. But it is essentially feature complete in terms of its mechanics, and all we're doing right now is tweaking a couple numbers and something weird comes up that needs
Yeah,
to
that
be
makes
adjusted
sense.
or something like that, that's getting done. Balancing combat, all that sort of thing. But the goal is to get it launched on one of the crowdfunding services. I'm actually kind of thinking that it's going to be BackerKit.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like BackerKit right now is funding a bit more of this sort of thing. I'm seeing a lot
Makes
of
sense.
Kickstarter still doing board games, but I'm not really seeing tabletop RPGs in there so much as I'm seeing them on Backer.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if you know any if that's the thing you've witnessed or something or know differently, please let me know. But every time I go onto BackerKit right now, I am seeing kind of tabletop RPG books, and that feels like that's kind of where that went.
I'll have Mark reach out to you because I know he's been doing keeping a close eye on this. And in part, one of the great things about having guests such as yourself on the stream and being able to start working with more creators is that um, it's really compelled us to spend a lot more time looking at the different crowdfunding campaigns, reading a lot more systems and a lot more adventures, and really kind of expanding our worldview as to what role-playing games are and how to where people are building communities around them. So it's kind
Yeah,
of forced us into that, which has been
and
fun.
anything that's input, or all input is appreciated when it comes to this kind of thing. I am you are looking at the creative and creation team over here, and if you look right over here at this empty chair, that's my editor, and this one over here is the in-house artist, and this one over here is the mechanisms developer, and everything else. Yeah, so like
Very nice.
marketing, as we know, is its own full-time job, and it's kind of difficult to do that when you're also doing all of the other things.
Totally.
So
Totally. Hey,
it's
that's
a bit
why I
of a
have
trip.
Tony. So thanks, Tony.
But yeah, all that stuff is helpful. And in this particular environment, in this market, I don't really feel like there's any I'm not in competition with other creators. The products that we're creating are cheap enough that you can easily afford to have more than
Yeah.
one of them.
Right.
If you are playing games on a regular basis, you can play more than one game. You don't have
Yeah.
to commit yourself entirely to D&D and say that this is the only thing I play. You don't have to do the same thing with Blades of the Dark or anything else that you want to do. You can keep
Right.
spreading out. Everything's got its own thing to offer. And we're not in competition with each other. We're just making more cool things for you to own.
Yeah.
Right. So
Correct.
all of these books with all these art books, even if you don't, I think that's one of the things that makes me want to keep creating in physical media, is that even if I don't play a game, its book is a beautiful thing that I have on my shelf that I can just look at and be like, oh, look how cool it is. Like check out this thing over here, or this was a really neat idea. And having a shelf full of those just art books to enjoy are things that I like. And this is one of my bemoanings about Kickstarter that happened a few years back, more than a few years back. I think I ran into this at the tail end of second edition. In second edition, and in the two books that I did for first edition, cross marketing was really popular, and it was a really awesome way to kind of get the word out, because you could have a product and you could find a creator that was in the same space, and the two of you could promote each other's products, and everybody was happy about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're there to find things they like. This isn't being forced on them.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's a battle mat that I can use with this game that I'm already investing in. How cool is that? They find things that they enjoy. They're not really going in there with the one limited dollar amount. That was a cool thing.
Yep.
But that got latched onto by every bot in the world, and now you can't do it anymore. If you try to reach out to creators as you're doing Kickstarters, they will just ignore you most of the time.
Yeah.
Because they're under 20 other bots that are trying to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
For things that had nothing to do with you. Somebody's got a milk steamer and they're trying to approach me for cross promotion. I'm like, we don't have the same audience.
No.
This is not this is spam.
Yes.
Approach me if you have pretty dice that are sci-fi, and then we have something in common. And it was a real bummer, because it was one of those little gems of this is marketing that's almost moral. This is marketing where I can show somebody something that they want to own,
Right.
and they'll be happy that I showed it to them. And that kind of disappeared as an avenue for marketing,
Well, I tell
which
you,
was a letdown.
that's one of the hard things about being a small business person, right? Is being in a position where you absolutely must contribute to the capitalist system and work within it.
Yeah.
Like,
You have to bring the drum, and it's really difficult depending on your
oh,
personality types. Like I can
yeah,
talk about my products a lot because I enjoy talking about creation, but I have a horrible time marketing myself. I
yeah.
assume it's all trash. Like I just have zero confidence when it comes to it.
It's
I try to cover it up well, but like even putting a thing out on Blue Sky to approach y'all, it's like, am I gonna bother them if I press this button? Fuck it, I'm gonna do it. I need to get it somewhere. Like it's that's true of a lot of people. It's
right.
difficult to kind of the best way to reach folks that isn't just a little pop-up in the corner that people are going to actually download things to ignore your little pop-up
Hmm.
is to go through services where you have to reach out to somebody, and that is kind of making this assumption that I'm worth your time.
Right.
And it can be rough, if you're
It is.
somebody who just doesn't necessarily know.
Well, so like one of our approaches to how do you get yourself out there in front of people has been, what are ways that we can do it in a way that is mutually beneficial,
Mm,
right? And so we've for I don't even know, 2 years now, maybe longer, we've been picking up smaller RPGs and displaying them on stream, showing how to run them, showing how to prep them, how to set them up. Because now I'm giving time and attention to a small creator while also trying to build my own following, right? So Mark's been doing a
mm,
fantastic job with those streams, and I think that like now we're starting to build like this library of role-playing games that maybe people haven't heard of before. And from the very beginning, when we started down this project of building a tool for game masters, which we could talk all day long about. That's not the best name in the world, but that's what we are, I guess. GMs.
mm,
So we're trying to build this tool for GMs to run games and make that as easy as possible to try to make it as accessible as possible for new people. But we don't want to just be yet another tool for D&D,
right.
right? Like this has got to be something that works for all of the games out there that don't have a platform and don't have a system and don't ever get any love in the tools department. Um, and at the very least, it makes it feel to me like we're doing something good if we're doing marketing and doing product development and everything in a way that is beneficial to all the other small businesses and creators out there. It makes me feel good about it at least, and feel like we're maybe hopefully contributing in some small way and keep doing that. But it takes at the very least it takes the edge off of the discomfort of having to go through and do some of those things.
Well, I appreciate it, for sure. It's definitely nice to have somebody out there who's kind of looking at the level of folks that aren't able to catch the attention of like larger platforms or anything else like that. Um, we need the help.
Yeah, and I think the more that like we collaborate together in groups as small creators, it starts to build a larger audience of from the people that are really interested in this sort of thing. So hopefully it
Mhm.
works out for everybody. But so we should definitely be looking for an upcoming announcement about Gallery, and obviously we'll be happy to share that for anybody that's following along on Lorelink. Um, it, are you open to people jumping in and trying to run more playtests, or you're kind of full up on your
Yeah.
playtesters, or
No, no, I would appreciate folks if they are interested in doing that, letting me know.
Mhm.
There's a Discord channel for HSD and for Gallery that just for Opens Grade Funk stuff in general.
Nice,
If they'd like to join that, that's on the website. There's also just my email that we can kind of toss in there too.
nice.
Um, or some form of content that for reaching, even if you want to like post a note on the YouTube channel. It's very useful to get groups that I'm not directly attached to do testing. it's one thing to prove that a system exists or that a system works when somebody explains it to you. But if you don't have somebody to explain it to you, the book still needs to explain it. Groups that are being told word of mouth how to play.
That's fair. That's fair.
So having disconnected groups is kind of a useful thing to get some stuff in. And providing getting good feedback from testers is tricky too. In HSD2, I actually created a specific multiple choice kind of questionnaire, because the thing that I kept running into was that people were not necessarily testing the rules. They were reading them, saying they didn't like a thing, and then writing their own, which is a great thing to do once the book is published and you've got it. You own it. Do whatever you want. Make the game be what you want to be. I am certainly not here to tell you to conform to whatever it is that I have put down in that book once it's published. But before I can publish it, I need to know it works the way it's written. So the rules have to be tested the way they're written down, or we don't get useful information.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that could be interesting. So you have two books. You have the Muse book and the guide book.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you have an adventure for the playtest, or how, what are you running people through?
I mean, the one that I'm running is an adventure that I'm just making up as we go.
Nice.
An adventure
Very cool.
module will exist when the book goes to market.
Okay, cool.
There hasn't been one written up for it yet. I've been actually kind of trying to figure out where I want the quasi intro adventure to be. So
Sure.
there are two intro adventures for HC DRACONES. There's Stars of Orlandria and there's Vigilance. Both of those are intended for brand new players.
Okay.
This is their first intro to the game. Start here. Start on Stars of Orlandria, start in Vigilance, and that
Nice.
is a great place for you to start out. You'll have enemies that are commensurate to your level, and everything will work out fine. I haven't made one of those yet for Gallery. That's probably going to be the last step after rules are cemented, because I don't want to change the rules and then go into the module and change the module and all that stuff. That goes through it, but there will be one ready for launch. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of taxes is that I can't launch until next year. So if anything comes through, it gets taxed as income, and then you lose all the stuff right away. So
absolutely,
you don't get a chance to use it for fulfillment. But pretty early next year, we should be able to hopefully get that on one of the crowdfunding systems, and with any luck, hopefully it does well.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. It's a really cool concept. I haven't seen anything like it, and I really appreciate the fact that it has a target audience, and it has a target audience that, quite frankly, is underserved by the gaming world to a large extent. So
yeah, it's been nice to see how much of that has evolved. We do have things right now. Thirsty Sword Lesbians exists. There's all kinds of fun modules that are out there that are getting out there. But in terms of overall market popularity, yes, certainly less than normal. But there's this. I think this is the value of the statement that is in the front of this particular book, and one of the reasons why it's there. It actually mentions it in that kind of intro paragraph. Is any game can tell you, hey, you can run a thing here. You can run these kinds of stories in D&D. I've been in them. They're very fun.
Sure.
You can approach these topics in any other RPG, but there is a difference between being allowed to and being promoted to.
Absolutely.
There is a difference between can and this is built for this content.
Absolutely.
Having the transparency of I saw this piece of representation in this book, and I feel like it actually spoke to me, and somebody says, you're reading too far into it. No, look at page 7. You were not reading far into it. That's why it's there.
Right.
Nobody can tell you we're reading too far into a thing. It exists specifically for this purpose. And I feel like that the ability to put your foot down on that point is empowering.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But we do we'll have all the other kind of fun stuff that kind of goes with it. So I don't know if you saw HSD's just kind of wealth of different paraphernalia as I drag this big pile over here.
Oh goodness.
Oh my god, it's all falling. But yeah, we had this game had equipment cards, it had enemy cards that allowed you to kind of quick build enemies.
Nice.
To go through ships if you're doing naval combat.
Perfect.
That all came with it, and miniatures. The miniature story is a whole nightmare unto itself. But there will be similar available for Gallery, and as much as the game doesn't require this level of minutia, like we probably won't have equipment cards. There's no real equipment in the game. But there will be miniatures. That is purely because the creator likes little models. Those exist because I like little figures. That's why we have those.
There's something about a tactile game,
too.
you know?
Yeah. That is like, this is one of the monsters that, you know, came out of the miniature line. But the one of the fun things about building your own system is you do get to put the stuff in that you just like. You know, Gallery could probably be created in a way that didn't require a game grid, but I like game grids. That's kind of it.
Yeah, totally. I can only imagine that the more bits and pieces you add, the larger the complexity of the production becomes. Is that
For sure.
okay?
And that's the thing that becomes, and things can fall through the cracks when they collapse. That's actually is related to the miniature kind of nightmare. So the HST miniature line began when I had partnered with a team that was building something kind of akin to Hero Forge. And it was at a time when Hero Forge hadn't necessarily cornered the market to quite the degree it has now. But they had an interface that allowed you to build component-based models. And they had approached me and we had talked and we were like, okay, so I'm gonna build an HST miniature line and we'll have component-based models that allow you to build everything from TARs to like winged creatures to all kinds of stuff. And we actually did make it. It was a really cool system and it worked. You could grab a torso, you could put kind of any lower body you wanted to onto it. You can, you know, have weaponry, have armor, have different shapes that went through that. I actually have a whole bucket full of them over here, still left around, so you can kind of see what they looked like when they were built. Like here were several of the figures minus arms, but they had the lower bodies in place. All the stuff that went with it, and this system functioned and produced a lot of really cool figures for, God, how long did it last? I want to say like a year, 2 years, something like that. It's been a while. But that company went under. They couldn't compete with Hero Forge, and they just weren't getting enough advertisement out. They ultimately went away, and with them going away, their interface went away as well. So I was like, hey, I bought all these models, and they're like, well, here's your sculpts, which lands me with a whole bunch of files of like, here is an arm. Well, I had no interface where I could build this arm with a character, right? So it's kind of like a whole lot of investment that produced something that was not very workable.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the special edition miniatures, the ones that were created to help promote the thing, that were not modular, they were just special edition miniatures. I didn't end up getting those files. They disappeared off the map before they sent them to me. So if you're out there listening and you've got like the original Elysium model or the original Favorite model or the original who else was out there, Willow model, hold on to those. they're not coming back. Those are gone.
Very special.
Yeah, I did not get the STLs for those. But I then went in and grabbed all the individual components and built a couple pre-built models using the individual components that I could upload onto something like Shapeways. And this took, you know, weeks and weeks of work to do. Went up to Shapeways in pre-built form, which had taken away all of that fun modularity.
Yep.
But at least the models were up there in some way. And then Shapeways disappeared. And this happened to I think 2 other sites. And ultimately, the amount of kind of time and effort it takes to reconfigure these every time to a new interface, only to have it kind of disappear and never be found because all the marketing links and everything else just point to the wrong area, and I don't have a dedicated marketing team. It just wasn't worth it anymore. So that entire project, like, and all those models that kind of went with it have become like Kickstarter bonuses. You know, I'll give those STLs out for Kickstarter fulfillment bonuses, but they're not available anywhere because it just takes a nightmarish amount of work and they keep disappearing. So it was really a shame. It was a very cool system that functioned and was doing what it was supposed to do, and people could build their dream character out of it. And it had more body type availability than Hero Forge does now. And it disappeared to the winds.
That is really unfortunate because that's a
Yeah.
I love Hero Forge. I love the idea of being able to customize your miniatures, but having it like customized to the game you're playing is next tier.
It's pretty cool. It was, yeah, it was specifically the way their interface worked. They had partnered with several small creators, and you could go into the miniature lines for those games. HC Dracones had a little icon on the top, and there were a couple other ones. I can't remember which they were. But when you went in there, you would be given the map of different torsos, the map of different, lower bodies and stuff to build your figure with, and you can build it.
So we have a
And it would
business
be
idea for
wonderful if they were still around.
we have a business idea for anybody who wants to take over and
Yeah,
kick
right.
that back
Yeah.
off.
Unfortunately, I don't know if they want to, they saw what happened to the last one, right?
Right?
So at this point, Hero Forge has become kind of a juggernaut. I think it would be a
Yeah.
hard thing to compete against them. Once you get that top slot in Google, you're kind of,
Tell me about it. Yeah, we're fighting about
mm.
that right now, so it's fine. I mean, seriously, breaking into a market is hard, and it whether that's breaking into a specific niche for a game or a specific niche for your software or whatever, and that's like we said earlier, the sad reality of trying to produce something is we want to make enough money from it to at least be able to afford doing it, and that means having to find the people that want the thing that you're doing.
Right. Yeah. You got to find your market. You got to find the people who are willing to push you, which is, a whole other thing. That usually means stepping on their platform. So they have to make sure that it aligns to their brand. They have to make sure
Yep.
it's worth their time. And they're trying to make money. So if
Yeah.
they're trying to host a stream, they're going to get way more clicks on YouTube if they're hosting a stream that's hashtag D&D than they are if they're hosting a stream that's hashtag, HSD or something. It's just a thing that's known versus a thing that's not known, unless they are the driving personal force, and people will watch them do anything. That's kind
Yeah,
of what you hope
exactly.
for, is somebody who is like willing to take on the smaller projects because they themselves are the one who's getting the views.
Right.
But it's tricky,
It is.
you know. I would adore getting, the Advantris team or something to play one of my games. It'd be so much fun. But they are in the market they're in because people watch that market.
Yeah. Right.
At this point, they are also popular enough on their own that they probably could branch out, as could Critical Role or anybody else in these groups, because people know their personalities at this point, right? But
Right.
like they
Exactly.
got there because they either had market presence already in the case of Critical Role,
Yep.
but also because they're playing the games that everybody knows.
Yep. Absolutely. Well,
My cat is prowling around my feet.
I really appreciate having you here tonight. I really apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but we
Yeah.
came through it. This has been just a fantastic conversation. Again, to everybody watching, please pick up a copy of HSD. The books themselves are worth owning. Um, you got lots of great artwork, a really fantastic history and story to kind of lead you into where things are. Um, I really appreciate the rich background to get you started, and there's a ton of adventures that you can run to help you get going. So you're not kind of on your own having to come up with your own story right out of the gate. You can jump in and kind of work your way into the world.
Yeah, I think there's fully 18 pre-made contract modules or something like that. I haven't checked the
Goodness.
the number at front, but there's a bunch. You can be running pre-made contracts for quite
Uh,
a while without having to come up with your own.
I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say years, years worth of content. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's a an amazing looking system, very mature. 7 years it's been out, so definitely check that out and keep an eye out for Gallery, which will be coming hopefully beginning of next year, and we'll be able to get on a crowdfunding for that. So that really looking forward to that. And
Yeah, it's been a
Tony,
wonderful talk. Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much, Tony. If you wouldn't mind sharing
Mhm.
contact details. Again, this is Lorelink. Our thing is trying to build better software for people running games to make it so that any game system will work and that you can keep the action going, whether you're in a very story-oriented game and system or a very dice-oriented game and system. We still want things to work well for you and make it as easy as possible for you as a game master to get things running. So please check us out, give us a follow. Please give Emily a follow and check her out on Blue Sky and look at the website for Weapons Grade Funk. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great night. It's been lovely, and we will catch you all next time.